Welcome to Wish I Knew podcast. I'm Sarah Rosette.
And I'm Jamie Albright. And this week on the show we have
T. Thorn Coyle.
Yes, it was great.
It was.
They're a great guest, very positive, very, I don't know, just have a great energy. And it was a really fun interview.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff. The Midlist Indie Author Mindset book they have out, and Kickstarter, lots of tips for Kickstarter, lots of mindset and energy tips, like how to gauge your energy, which, you know, we all need that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was a fun interview. I think everybody's going to really love it.
Yeah, I do too. So that's coming up.
Yeah.
And we have some new supporters.
Yes. Thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody. I'll give them a shout out real quick. We've got Karen, who picked the book stack emoji, Susie Tate picked the heart emoji, Elizabeth Blaise, who picked the little the horn looking thing, has the celebration thing. I don't know what that is.
Celebration horn. Yeah.
Yes, that's the last one. So
yeah.
We appreciate you all, and thank you for your support. We really appreciate it.
We do. Yeah. We don't really have a big update because we were both away this week. So our mastermind was awesome, but that's about all we can say. So, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a whole lot to talk about, except we both listen to podcasts either on the way over there, on the way back. And I listened to one I was going to mention. It's the Novel Marketing Podcast, and it's about the kind of the phases or the cycles that societies have gone through. It's looking back at the past, and there's been a lot of analysis done about how things change, but then we kind of go through the same cycles over and over again in this pattern. And it was geared towards what type of books and protagonists people are going to want as we're going into this crisis phase or cycle where things are kind of in an uproar and we're not sure how everything's going to shake out. And the consensus was that people are going to kind of want things that are simpler, things that are more straightforward, more hero, less anti-hero. And, we'll have to wait and see what actually happens. Less deconstruction and more like simple plots, more straightforward plotting, I guess. So it was very interesting. So I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes. And you listened to another one too, right?
Yes, I did. I listened to What If by Claire Taylor, her episode on what if AI takes our jobs or something.
Replaces us or something. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, don't worry, that's not happening, she says. But it's a great episode because it gives you a lot to think about in that. In fact, when you finish the episode, you don't know where Claire stands because that's not the point. The point is that why are people why do we have fear around it? Why can some people not get over the quote unquote original sin of AI? The fact that it was built on what they perceive to be something that is highly unjust. The taking of material, copyrighted material without permission, and how some people just cannot get beyond that, and they never will get beyond that. And then there are people that can see that in a different way and can get beyond it. So it was just really good. It made me think a lot about how I feel and where my line is, and if I even have a line, and do I need a line? And yes, I do need a line. I think we all need a line. And, but it was a very good episode. And I really highly recommend it.
Sounds good. I will download it. So, yeah. So some good supplemental listening this week. We'll have those links in the show notes. And yeah, I think that's all we've got right now.
I think that's it.
We've got to get back to the routine and do some writing and other stuff to have something to talk about next week.
Well, we're recording this on the Monday after, and I was really excited to get back into work today and have just not been feeling well. I think I've mentioned that several times, but I went to the doctor today and I had to go get an IV, and it was like a whole thing, blood drawn and everything. So I think that I'm just a little dehydrated, but, we'll see. But so I'm just not doing anything today. Tomorrow, I'm
Tomorrow will
jumping.
be the busy day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, this is a recovery day. It's
Yeah.
like, got to do all the email and get things sorted out and then get back to it tomorrow. So,
Yeah,
like
I
I said,
do
I would
have a
take a
list
whole
from
day
last
and just
week, things that I need to.
mark off. Yeah.
Yeah.
The never ending to do list. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So, anyway, enjoy this episode. Thorn is so smart. You're really gonna
Mhm.
enjoy it.
Yeah. So here is Thorn. Today, we are really excited to have Thorn Coyle here. How are you?
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're so happy you're here, Thorn. We talked about you coming on the podcast at Author Nation. Glad we got you on.
Yeah. So let me read your bio. Thorn is the author of the Midlist Indie Author Mindset and several magic-filled series with diverse cast, including The Seashell Cove and the Pride Street Paranormal Mysteries, The Witches of Portland, Mouse Thief, and many others. Thorn has also written multiple nonfiction books on magic and spiritual practice and lives in Portland, Oregon.
Very good. Tell us how you got into writing.
Well, I'm one of those people that I was writing at like age 5. I came from a really large family. And so we were, doubled and tripled up in bedrooms. And so I slept on a trundle bed and I had a little nightlight. And I remember pushing pencil and paper under the nightlight to write poetry
Wow.
at a really young age, right? So I've always written. I wrote journalism, I wrote articles, I wrote plays, I wrote poetry. I've been published. I'm a published journalist, published poet, and then started writing fiction. Did the classic, trying to polish one short story in the course of a year,
Right.
a million unfinished novels. Gave that up for nonfiction. My first nonfiction book was traditionally published 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've been on the professional end of, well, I guess with journalism, I was a professional for a while, but I've been professionally publishing books for 20 years and then indie publishing for 8.
So you've been doing this for a long time and you've seen
Yeah.
a lot of changes in the industry. So I think this will be really interesting.
Yeah.
What is your definition of success?
My definition of success is I write what I want. I reach my readers and I live life the way I want to. I work as little or as much as I feel like it. And I make a steady middle class living, which is awesome. Now, do I want to increase that success or shift it? Sure. But I feel I'm successful now because really I live life the way I want to live my life.
There's nothing really better than that. I think
I
that's
was gonna say,
right.
that's a great definition.
Right.
Well, what do you wish you'd known about writing and craft? So having written so long, did you come in really knowing things, or have you learned things along the way?
I've learned a lot along the way. And, I'm going to reference again that stack of unfinished novels.
Oh,
The thing
yeah.
I wished I had known then
Yeah.
was just finish anything,
Yes.
right? It's better to finish something and move on from it, even if you think it's garbage,
Yeah.
than to not finish it, right? That's why I stalled out on fiction writing and abandoned it for a long time. So, it's in ceramics, there's the concept of just throw 100 pots, right?
Mhm.
You don't try to perfect one pot. You just throw 100 and you learn as you go. And
Yeah.
I wished I had done that with fiction.
Mhm.
So then when I came back to fiction, I studied intensively. Like I found some mentors, I took writing classes, figured out how to finish a book.
Mhm.
But because I'd been writing all those years, I think I picked it up pretty quickly. And also I've been a reader since a tiny child, right?
Yes.
We're all taking in story all the time.
Right.
And so just giving myself permission to finish
Mhm.
was the biggest teacher for me.
Right.
So now I get to learn with every book I write and with every book I read, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's true. I don't have those unfinished manuscripts under the bed before I published, or the finished ones under the bed before I published, because I published my first book. But this year, I have started and stopped four or five projects, I think.
Yeah.
Right, Sarah?
Mhm.
And it's a little demoralizing to it's not good for your psyche to
No.
start something and not finish it. So I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and of course, that was back before indie publishing when I was abandoning novels, right? But my craft would have been, and the same with trying to polish one short story to death. My craft would have been better served by just finishing, getting the rejections when I'd mail them out, and then mailing another story, right?
But a lot of times we don't realize that. And there are things that you have to finish the book to see, or finish the story to see. And that's why you have to do it to get that perspective. I also have very, very polished first chapters that never saw anything else.
Right. And it also means we never, you're right. We learn things by finishing, and we just don't give our subconscious a chance to play, right? So what that really was me saying, I want this to be perfect, and I want to write it correctly, rather than just saying, oh, I'm playing, right? I'm writing fiction. Who cares? I'm making stuff up.
Yeah, we forget that many times. It's so super serious. That's my fault too. What about marketing? What do you wish you'd known about marketing?
In a way, it's similar. Wanting to do the right kind of marketing, right? Being frozen. Well, what if this marketing doesn't work? So that's one part of it. But early on, I listened to the wrong people because I didn't know any better. I mean, that's changed, just in the last 8-9 years, right? Even the last 4 or 5 years, I've seen a change in how people approach marketing. But at the time, I spent way too much money on very expensive courses on how to do this very specific kind of advertising that was not right for my catalog at the time. I didn't have enough books out, or my books weren't in the right genre, or my books were not in KU, right? I didn't know the right questions to ask, and too many people were just like, no, this will work for everything. And it's like, well, no, actually it doesn't. Right. So I had to stop all that, retrench, and start what I call in the Midlist book, the slow build, right? Figuring out, no, here's how I want to try to connect to readers. For me, marketing is all about making connections. And I think more and more people are talking about it in that way. Right. You connect one reader at a time. How do I connect with that reader? And then how does that build itself out? And I would do things like, oh, well, I'll do a list builder, I'll pay money to get on those big list builders. And a long-term writer friend was like, why are you doing that? Why you don't want those people? And I was like, no, but they're subscribers. Why wouldn't I want them? Right. Now I'm like, oh, every time someone unsubscribes, I'm happy.
Yes.
Because they're not my audience.
No, that's what I always say. If people aren't going to pull their weight, they can go, which means they're reading, they're interacting, they're telling people about my books, and things like that.
Yeah, but I've seen that attitude shift, I think, industry-wide as the indie publishing industry matures. I think people are figuring it out. It's like, no, we're actually just running a business. And here's how you run a business, right?
And you don't have to all do it the same way.
That's right.
I think a few years ago, there were a couple of people that had great success, and everybody was like, oh, well, this is just how you do it. This is the way to success. And I think now we've got all these different options and paths, and we can choose a different path or create something that nobody else is doing, and it's totally fine. And
exactly.
Yeah.
What do you do for marketing right now?
I do a few things. I go in and out of free first and series. My books are wide. I'm not in KU, so I'll say that first. So I go in and out of free first and series and using like the paid newsletters, whether it's BookBub or Fussy Librarian or whatever. That works really well. And that's also what I found to be the best way to get reviews.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I used to like run an ARC team, do all that. It was a lot of work, but I didn't really start getting reviews until I started doing the free first and series with the paid newsletters. Now, all of a sudden, my books have thousands of reviews and I no longer run an ARC team. Right.
That's great. Yeah.
So I do that. I'm on social media every day. Mostly I do what I call content marketing, right? Mostly I'm not posting about my books. I'm posting things I find interesting, photos I take on my walks, And then I'll be like, oh, and I'm in this story bundle, or I'm running this Kickstarter, or this book is on sale. The other thing I do is I send out a weekly newsletter. That was a huge shift for me. I used to send out a sporadic newsletter, and then I would send out a monthly newsletter. It always felt like a hard chore. As soon as I switched to weekly, it took the pressure off, because I'm like, all I have to do is sit down, and in 15 minutes, I can write 300 words. And then under that, I'll put my little ad of whatever book or series I want to feature that week, right? And then people started responding. People appreciate the weekly newsletter.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's my personality. It's just something thoughtful with a little advertisement.
That's awesome.
And I could see how that could be less pressure than, like, if you're doing a newsletter once a month, it's like, oh, I've got to put in all these different things, where it's just like one single thing, which is what they recommend for a newsletter,
right?
The experts. So I think that could actually reduce stress instead of increasing it, which is interesting.
It totally has decreased my stress level around my newsletter.
That's amazing.
And you're right. Best practices is one link click.
Yeah. And that's
right.
it.
So if it's once a month and I'm in a story bundle and have a free book and maybe launching a Kickstarter, that's too many links. I'm on a podcast.
So I interrupted you. Were there any more marketing? You mentioned newsletter and social media.
That's my basic marketing. I am considering going back to, now that I've got my direct store, I'm considering going back to Facebook ads. Facebook ads did not work for me to retailers, right? I think they worked for people in KU, just like Amazon ads work for people in KU. I used to, run all those years ago. But now that I'm doing direct sales and that's my primary focus, that kind of advertising makes more sense to me.
It does.
So I'm ramping into that for this year.
That's great. Well, what are you glad you know now
about marketing?
Just about it, the industry or your books or yourself or whatever.
Yeah, gosh, there's so much, Jamie. So the thing I do for both writing and business that really changed my business around was invoking curiosity. Right? I want to be as curious about business as I am about my writing practice and my characters. And once I made that mindset shift to be curious about business became enjoyable, right? Now I enjoy researching business. I enjoy researching, mindset stuff. I enjoy researching how to increase income, right? Because it no longer feels like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail.
Right.
Or, oh, it's too hard. And so because of that, now when something really is too hard for me, like, I've got an autoimmune disorder and a brain injury, right? Some stuff is beyond my capacity. Then I know, oh, that I actually need to hire someone. Right. And figuring out I get to run my business my way, and I am just running a business has been helpful. So, like, I would hear people talking about getting a VA, a virtual assistant, and I'd be like, I really need help. I really need a VA. But the thought of hiring one stressed me out. Then I realized, oh, it's because I was looking at other people's businesses. The thing I needed to hire was a bookkeeper and a tax accountant, right? I didn't need to hire someone to run my social media accounts. Right.
And
because you enjoy that. Yeah.
Right. And the thing that stresses me out about a VA is that I don't want to have to explain everything to her.
Yes.
Well, a bookkeeper and a tax accountant, I can't explain anything to them anyway. So
that's right.
That actually helps.
Exactly.
Yeah, an editor can't explain anything to her. She knows way more than me.
Right. So yeah, I hire out editing. I hire out, and then I hire out the accounting stuff, and that's been awesome for me.
Yeah, that's really great.
Very focused.
Yeah,
like outsourcing, which is smart.
I think that's a great answer.
Well, what do you still need to figure out?
The thing I still need to figure out is I still have some internal discomfort about sharing my books enough with people, right? And so I'm working on this year shifting that, because the world needs my books. The world wants my books. People are so happy to read my books. I get letters and notes and social media messages from people saying, "Oh, thanks so much. Like your corgi mysteries have, made me so happy lately because I've been having a hard time." And I need to read other people's books. Right? They make me happy and they help me through life.
Right.
So I need to just keep working on getting over my discomfort at saying, "Hey, here are these books."
Well, don't you think it's harder for highly spiritual people, I think, sometimes to want to hawk their books? Because we're just sort of like, I'm just gonna let the universe, I'm gonna let God, I'm just gonna let them deal with it. And instead of having a real good plan sometimes.
I agree. I think, and I think there's discomfort because, oh, well, are we supposed to be materialistic? It's like,
Yes, exactly.
yes, we live in a material world. We live on this beautiful planet. We eat food.
Yes.
I have a roof over my head.
Yes.
So yes, I am materialistic.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. So we just have to kind of get over that, but it's hard.
And also, even your comment, Jamie, about, shouldn't we let the universe or God take care of it? Well, you're part of that whole flow, right?
Ecosystem, yeah.
I'm part of that flow. I'm not removed from that flow, right?
Exactly.
So
we can be part of
it's just my ego feels uncomfortable because much as I've been a public speaker for decades. I've traveled all over the world teaching and talking, and yet I still have a thing about being visible from childhood. If I'm too visible, I'll get in trouble. And I think that is still embedded in me. I've actually been wondering if I need to see a hypnotist or something and just say, but it's also okay to just sit with our discomfort around it and say, I'm going to do it anyway. So my plan for this year is to do more of that.
Good.
Yeah. It sounds like you do it anyway, even if you're uncomfortable.
Right. I do, but I really don't think I do it enough. Like I came out with an oracle deck. And so lately I've been doing the card of the week because I'm like, I really need to let people know I have this deck.
Yes.
So I've been doing a card of the week video. And just today, someone's like, did I miss that you had an oracle deck? I said, yeah, you did. Even though I felt like I posted about it constantly. Clearly I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Because people are coming in and out of our social media and it's getting shown to some people and not shown to others. And I know.
Yep.
Like that. Well, you mentioned ads, but what's the most unhelpful advice you've gotten?
2. One was stay in my lane. I'm not going to do it.
Right.
It's not how I want to write or run my business. But the second one was everyone told me, since I had 3 traditionally published nonfiction books, when I came back to writing fiction, everyone said I needed a pen name. And I said, no, I still have an audience that I've built up goodwill with for years. And I think there's going to be crossover. And so I stuck with my one name, which everyone said was a mistake. And they're like, you're going to pollute your also bots on Amazon. Right. It's going to confuse the algorithm. Well, gosh darn, that algorithm changes every 6 months. And also bots went away. And then maybe they came back. And so I'm really glad I didn't listen to those people. And, if I was a different person, that would have been the correct advice, right? Some people do really well with 5 pen names. For me, it just sounds exhausting.
Right.
I think this is a good point to mention. In your book, you talked about the different paths that people have. And you said one was like a lane, one is like a highway, and one is like the wandering path, right? The 3. So can you talk about those a little bit? Because I thought that was a very interesting way to frame your how you're approaching your writing life.
Yeah, so lane writers do really well with niching down. They only write one genre, generally one subgenre even. And then if they're going to branch off, they start a pen name, right? And they do really well, super focused, and they're very successful that way. Other people are the wide highway, and that's kind of what I am. Everything is on the same big road and it's all under the same umbrella. and I connect with people wherever they are, but I have a lot of people that love everything I do, right? I've got my fans that will read across the board because it's all my voice.
Right.
And everything I write has the same tagline of magic is real, justice is worth fighting for. You're going to get that out of my books, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, cozy paranormal mystery, contemporary fantasy, doesn't matter, right? I also have a little bit of the wandering path. So the wandering path are the people who kind of don't focus on much of anything. They kind of go here and there. That it's harder to make a living with the wandering path, and some people still make it work. Right? Like Johnny B. Truant, I think, is one example. He really just does whatever he wants. And he makes a living, right? And his fans follow his wandering wherever he goes. So we all just have to find what works for us. And the emphasis, again, on the slow build is what's important, right? It's going to be easier for some people to have faster success on the narrow lane, but those people often burn out, right? So my way is slower, but it's stable, it's steady. And so now when I'm ready to level up, I've got a platform.
Yeah, that's really
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I find that my writing is narrow lane, but my interest in social media is more highway. And I don't know, I'm not sure how that's going to work for me when I have another book out. But if I'm going to stay on social media, this is the only way I can stay on social media because I do not just constantly doing book stuff is incredibly boring to me. It stresses me out because I'm just like, am I doing it right? Are they going to watch? It's frustrating when people don't, So doing different things has been really great for me.
I've been dipping my toe into TikTok, even though I've avoided TikTok, just because, again, direct sales, right? And everyone, as we know, says best practices for TikTok is you only post about books and you only watch things about books. And I don't know if it's going to end up working for me because of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
But what you're doing instead is what I tend to do, which is content marketing and connecting with people.
Yeah.
And building up goodwill. Right. And that building goodwill works for someone like me, especially when it's time for me to run a Kickstarter. There's all these people I've built goodwill with because I haven't been constantly saying, buy my book.
Right. Exactly.
So they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to share your Kickstarter now.
And while we want those well readers, we also want the readers that buy 1 or 2 books a year, and then talk about them. And I feel like that those are the readers I'm kind of targeting on TikTok right now. Just the ones that kind of casual readers, but when they find a book they like, they really talk about it. I don't know. I have no idea if it works. I don't listen to me.
Well, but it's it means you're doing it.
Yes.
So it's working for you, right? Because otherwise you just wouldn't do it.
No, I wouldn't. And I didn't for quite a while because it was it was just demoralizing. There's that word again. But I mean, it just sort of makes you feel like a failure and you don't want to do it. For me, that it was best.
Well, what is the biggest change you've had to make in your thinking? We've talked a little bit about that, but is there anything that comes to mind? It could be marketing, publishing, anything.
The main thing was the curiosity thing. And also just saying, I am running a business, right? So it took out the whining, I don't want to market. I don't want to. It's like, well, too bad you're running a business. So figure out a way you can engage with it, right? And also the realization that most businesses across the board don't make any profit for 3 to 5 years. And most businesses across the board are not actually bringing in decent revenue and considering themselves to be successful for a decade.
Right.
Yeah. And most of them are gone before that decade, right?
Yeah. So we have some kind of unrealistic expectations when we start out.
We totally do. And in recent years, I've seen the goalposts I mean, I'm a goalpost mover. I think a lot of us are.
Most of us, yeah.
But industry-wide, like the goalposts have gone from, well, become a 6-figure author to become a 7-figure author, which is an exponential.
Yeah.
Right. And, I laugh, like millionaire romance became billionaire romance.
Yeah.
It didn't become multimillionaire romance.
No, we went all the way to billion. Yeah.
Right. And so these are exponential leaps that affect our psychology. And it's why I wrote the Midlist book. I'm like, you know what? You can make a middle-class living. And from that middle-class living, if you want to, you can up your income, right, to upper middle class or, become a millionaire or whatever, right? But let's just say it's pretty damn possible to become a Midlist middle-class author.
Yeah, and good, that's a good thing. Yeah.
It's a great thing. And again, low pressure, right? The slow build. I have a platform now. I'm established, so I can move from there and make better business decisions.
Right.
Yeah. So those have been my major changes, I think. And as a consequence, this year, I'm working on leveling up my writing craft, which is really exciting and wonderful. And I'm leveling up my business also simultaneously.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So if you were starting over today, what would you do differently?
Well, if I was starting over today, I would finish all those books I didn't write decades ago. But the main thing is I would have patience with my own process.
Yeah.
And I would ask myself, am I asking the right questions of the right people? Right?
Yeah.
Who am I studying? Am I studying a marketer who's only working with KU authors? For example, or am I studying a marketer who only works with people who have a really narrow niche?
Or a marketer whose values don't align with mine.
A marketer whose values don't align with mine.
That's a big one too. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. But once you've been in the business and you've done that, that's not a fun place to be. It feels very icky. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
It's who we kind of model ourselves after, or we study and go, okay, this is what they're doing. But it is really important to figure out, does this match up with the things I write and things I want to do? Because there have been times I'm like, well, I've got to do a street team because everybody has a street team. And really, my readers they're not into that.
They're not out on the street.
No, they're not.
No. Yeah. And, and I want to say, Sarah, how you've done your marketing has been very successful, because before I even knew who you were or that you were an indie author, I was reading your books.
Oh, so cool.
So something you were, because I wanted cozy mysteries. So something you were doing was working, right?
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
That made my week.
That's so
Yay!
awesome.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because sometimes you're doing things and you don't know. It's hard, especially when you're doing content type marketing.
Yeah.
It's hard to track what's working and what's not.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just do it because you love doing it. Like a podcast, not this podcast. I mean, because I have another one for mystery readers that I do, and I really don't know if anybody's listening to it. I don't get much feedback, but I see the download numbers. So obviously somebody's listening to it and finding me that way. So just things like that, you don't really know the return. It's hard to track. Well, we wanted to talk to you about, in your book, you talk about gauging your energy. And I think this is a really interesting subject or topic. So give us a little insight on how you have learned to gauge your energy, and maybe any tips or advice you would have for people who are thinking, I need to figure out where to spend my energy.
Yeah. There's a few things that help me. My main ally in this is everything in my business is modular, right? So I have my master list of things that need to get done. I have some things on the schedule. There's never a day where you get everything done, right? So what I have to do is, in the morning now, I go through and say, okay, what's actually on the schedule for today? Usually that's like one thing, like if my book is launching on retailers, I need to do that today, or if I'm, got a Kickstarter fulfillment, I'm doing this part of it today, right? But everything else is in these modules that I get to gauge. I check in with my energy and go, is my brain firing on all cylinders today? Or is my brain kind of foggy and mushy because I'm having a bad day? If I'm in a great energy mode and my brain is clear, I can get through a bunch of stuff on my list in like 2 hours, right? Whereas on a day when I'm slow and sluggish, if I try to do anything, A, I'm going to mess it up. And B, I'm not going to get very much done. And it's what I call diminishing returns, right? I'm better off saying, because these are modular, I'm shunting these modules off to tomorrow, where I'm going to assess my energy again. So that's the business part. The writing part is similar. My goal is, when I'm writing, is to write every day, right? And most often I'm in writing mode, although it's also seasonal for me. I tend to write a little less in the winter. I write more when spring into summer. So if I sit down, I'm always going to sit down and try to write. As soon as I start typing, if my brain wipes itself, which it does sometimes,
I've had that, yeah.
I know today I'm not writing. There are other times where I'm like, okay, I can write for like 1 page and now I'm tired. Well, maybe I get up and make a cup of tea, or maybe I go for a walk outside and come back and I can do another session, right? Because that's kind of a slow writing day.
Right.
And then there's other writing days where I sit down, I'm great, I get my full sessions in, get the word count I love to get, right? So I have to gauge my energy every single day. And I have learned to know what is resistance, what is just, I don't want to, or I'm having some kind of, whatever about it. And what actually means, no, I need to adjust my work schedule today. So it's about coming to know ourselves.
I was going to say, and the only way you know that is to do it. I mean,
Yes.
to practice
To
that.
practice it.
The thing I don't do, though, is just say, I don't feel like it, so I'm not going to try today. I am always going to try, whether it's business or writing. And then I actually know what's going on.
I think that's great advice.
Another piece of advice, when my brain injury was at its worst, an occupational therapist told me to work in 10-minute chunks. Because anything more than that was actually too much for me. And I did that with writing and business. Now, when I do sprints, I do 25 minutes. But there are times now when I'm like, I have 15 minutes before I have to go to the grocery store. I'm going to sit down and write for 10 minutes. Because now I know I can do that. I can get a lot done in 10 minutes.
Correct. That's really great. It's really great. Well, let's talk about, you have different income streams. So you have newsletter and Patreon and Kickstarter. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, direct sales.
Direct sales, that's right.
Direct store.
Yeah. How much time do you give those? What's the one that you give the most time to? I know you do a weekly newsletter, so that seems like a lot of time, but I just didn't know.
The weekly newsletter takes me 20 minutes a week.
Okay.
It's almost no time.
Yeah.
And my weekly newsletter, I have actually, since I've written the book, I've scaled back on the monetization part. I do still have people that pay me for it, but I don't focus on that as much because I'm focusing more on direct sales from my store now. So that, I don't spend that much time on my direct sales store yet either, but I'm increasing that slowly. That's the other thing I do, right? I want to do everything all at once and get it all perfect. And I have to let myself not do that.
Right.
I have to just say, my store is bringing in income. My store is profitable. That's awesome. It's a great stream of income. Yes, I want that to increase. I'm building that out over the next quarter, right? So I'm still working on that. Patreon, my Patreon I've had for 9 years, and it has changed over time. It's pretty random, actually. Again, I just post something every week and people just give me money because I've built up a relationship with them over years. And periodically I will say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. What do you want? And most of them just say, whatever you want to do is great. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So my Patreon is very idiosyncratic. It, like all of my career, it just works for me. I'm not one of those people that I have to write a certain amount every week because I'm doing a serialization. Mm-hmm. Right. That's a whole different thing. I'm just like, here's an essay. Here's a short story. Here's a segment of the book I'm working on. Here's this podcast. Mm-hmm. Right. My Patreon's very, very random, but it's brought in steady, really great income for me for a long time.
Yeah, that's really great.
And then the one that takes the most time, but it's sporadic, is Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. Kickstarter has a very high return for me on investment of time, so it's well worth it for me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you doing several Kickstarters a year now?
I do 3 a year.
Wow, that's a lot.
I may scale back to 2 a year, but for right now, 3 a year is working for me. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely time. Mm-hmm. That takes time and attention, but I enjoy it. And Kickstarter is also direct sales. It's just the spike marketing of direct sales, right? Whereas my web store is the ongoing slow burn, right?
Mm-hmm. Do you do book fulfillment yourself for your Kickstarter, or do you do
I do. I use Ingram. I only have done print on demand so far. For my upcoming Kickstarter, that'll be the first time I'm going to use a specialty printer and have someone else do fulfillment for me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've run, a dozen Kickstarters just using print on demand, and made anywhere from $3,500 to $23,000.
That's amazing.
Right? I've run the gamut. And so I like to keep mine pretty simple.
Yeah. So what types of things are you doing for Kickstarter for the main project? Do you do like omnibus? Do you do individual books?
I have done everything. I have done short story collections. Mm-hmm. I have done 2 novellas, those my Mouse Thief cozy fantasy books. 2 novellas that on the open market probably would have made me no money. Very little effort. I made $6,000 on Kickstarter.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. 2 20,000 word novellas. So, and then I've done omnibus collections of like backlist. Mm-hmm. Right. So like my Witches of Portland, I did 3 omnibus sets that were a little bit fancier, but they still weren't that fancy. Mm-hmm. And then I have launched individual books. I've launched series. I tend to, when I launch series, I like to launch at least 2. But my next Kickstarter, I'm only launching 1.
So you'll launch into Kickstarter and then put it on the retailers?
I always launch into Kickstarter now. I won't launch on retailers anymore. I don't find it worth it. I find it better. Launching on Kickstarter means all my cost is recouped. Yeah. I'm launching in the black.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is what I tell people. Even if your Kickstarter makes $600, you've now paid for your editing and your cover. Mm-hmm. So I always launch on Kickstarter now. I do backlist stuff on Kickstarter. And I'm going to start doing more special editions on Kickstarter. Like in the fall, I'm running a big Kickstarter. I got the rights back to my first published nonfiction book, and I'm doing a big 20th anniversary edition. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So I really use Kickstarter for everything. Yeah. I run the gamut. And, like I did 3 short story collections and made a bunch of money. Like, who makes money on short story collections?
Kind of unheard of in the author community.
Yeah,
even for
right?
Authors, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those short stories I'd already been paid for on Patreon, or I'd sold them to anthologies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I got paid twice for them.
Yeah. Is there anything you wish you had known about Kickstarter that you think this would have been helpful for somebody to know?
The thing The thing that I've always done on Kickstarter is the thing I wish more people knew now, which is don't be afraid to start simple. Right? Right now, since so many people are using Kickstarter for the huge campaigns and the fancy special editions, everyone thinks, oh my gosh, I need to do the sprayed edges and the foiling, and I need to have a bunch of swag and bling. And I talked to someone who said, well, I went into debt on my last Kickstarter. I said, there is no way you should have taken a loss on Kickstarter. Right? Every single tier should make its own profit. Right? Yeah. And so I really encourage people to just do a super simple campaign, whether it's launching a new book or doing an omnibus of 3 of your backlist books, or just recovering 3 of your backlist books, or writing an extra novella or something, and then doing a Kickstarter. Because you have to have a new product for Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But anything can be a new product, right?
Right. Or you can make something new by adding something to it. Like
exactly.
You're saying the covers, or maybe you add a couple of illustrations, or the packaging is different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then throw in a new short story that no one has read before, or something. So I just encourage people to keep it simple on Kickstarter, because then you're paying for some of your expenses and you're learning the platform.
Yeah.
And Kickstarter is a new audience. That's the other thing. Everyone thinks they need to bring their audience to Kickstarter, and some people do. But Kickstarter is also its own book ecosystem. There are super backers that buy all their books on Kickstarter.
Wow. I was shocked at how many people backed my projects that I had no idea, my campaigns, that I was like, I don't know who these people are. They're new to me, which is wonderful. That's fine now.
Yeah, they came from Kickstarter.
Well, we're coming to the end, but we like to ask everybody this question about, what do you think is the best thing you've done to set yourself up for success?
The best thing I've done to set myself up for success has been to follow my heart, follow my path, listen to my intuition, and then stay curious.
Yeah.
Keep learning.
Yeah. Very good.
Excellent.
Yep, I love that. Well, where can people find out more about you and your books?
At thorncoyle.com and Thorn Coyle Books, although that's linked to my thorncoyle.com site. And I'm all over social media. I'm on pretty much everything.
Right. And that's Coyle, right?
Yeah, it's Irish, Coyle.
Very good. Very good.
Okay, well, we will have that link in the show notes. So thanks for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. And before we go, I want to say one last thing. Jamie, one thing I learned from you at Author Nation is I need to bring a bigger suitcase, because your outfits and your shoes are fabulous.
She's just a fashion show, right?
Your fashion game is on point, and I celebrate you.
Thanks so much. I love it.
So everyone go watch Jamie's fashion TikToks.
That's right, because she does it one every day, pretty much.
I do, pretty much, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening today. You can support the podcast at wishidknownforwriters.com/support. And you can find the show notes at that same link, wishidknownforwriters.com. And we will see everybody next week.
Yeah, bye.